Welcome to today's session on Publix and how they're creating a culture of making shopping a pleasure as well as working a pleasure in its organization's culture throughout the state of Florida and the southeastern parts of the United States. In this video, we will unravel the puzzle regarding how is it that Publix is making shopping a pleasurable experience for most of their customers on most occasions, and how are they actually making working a pleasure for most of their employees on most days. I received my copy of 50 Years of Pleasure in 1987 when I first became a department manager in Altamont Springs in Orlando area. Still have it. So many employees have started working for Publix at a high school level. They became managers. Eventually, they retired from Publix as millionaires. Could you be one of those future millionaires? Well, can you become rich at Publix? Of course, the reality is that many people have done so. They've had a long career at Publix and retired very happily. As you can see, I started working in the bakery department back in 1984 when I was at high school in Fort Myers. I started working at the Cape Coral Parkway Publix as my first store. However, I've worked in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Naples, Marco Islands, and throughout the Central Florida region. And I've conducted training through the Human Resources Department all the way in Lakeland, Miami Division, as well as Jacksonville and Georgia divisions. So if I was able to have a successful career at Publix starting from high school, anyone can. So the purpose of this video is to provide some facts based on personal experiences so you can explore your own potential and the possibilities of making a career out of working at your local Publix. Publix was founded in 1930 by Mr. George Jenkins. Currently in 2024, they have around 250,000 employees, more than 1,360 stores. Publix is the largest employee-owned grocery store in the United States. And it is ranked 42 by Fortune magazine. As a matter of fact, since the 90s, it has been listed as one of the top best 100 companies to work for in the United States by Fortune magazine. If you look at a 5-year period from 2017 to 2021, in terms of their number of employees and also sales, they have been consistently growing, and they have maintained a conservative or steady pace of growth. Publix's stock history shows that they have been growing steadily over the past 5 years. They have not had extreme ups and downs. It is obviously good news for their current employees and those who have retired from Publix and still are stockholders. Publix stocks have done fairly well. It has split over 5 times, as you can see. The first time it was 1969. Then in 1984, it split 10 to 1. In 1992, 5 to 1. In 2006, 5 to 1. Again, in 2022, again, it split 5 to 1. So Publix stock owners have had a good growth from their ownership. I should also mention that Publix is still an employee-owned company. Therefore, those who do not work for Publix are not eligible to purchase their stocks. Based on my estimates, if a person in 1984 were to purchase 1,000 stocks from Publix at a value of around $10,000 to $12,000, during 1984, today he or she would have close to $2 million. And this year in 2024, he or she would have earned $50,000 in dividends. Now imagine if you work for Publix in 1984 and you invested $10,000 that year and then invested again in 1985 and then invested again each year for 10 years. Imagine how much better off you would be compared to not having invested any funds in Publix stocks. So how does Publix do it? Well, it all starts with their mission statement to focus on the quality, the cleanliness, and efficiency, and above all, to focus on making every customer's experience a pleasure. Secondarily, they have to make the work environment a pleasure for all of their employees on a regular basis. Now, we must admit it does not happen all the time to where every shopping experience is a pleasure or every employee is always happy with work. Things sometimes go wrong. However, as a company, if you're focusing on that and reaching for it, hopefully you come close to it, if not achieve it all the time. Let us look at their mission statement. Publix's mission statement states that they want to be the premier quality food retailer in the world. This mission statement was created back in the late 80s, and it was socialized into the culture in 1990s as well. And they still practice the same mission statement. They want to be focused on customer value. They are intolerant of waste. They focus on the dignity, value, and employment security of their associates. And they want to be involved as responsible citizens in their communities. So Publix is a respected company in Florida, as well as in several other states throughout the southeastern part of the US. And it's also recognized as a well-managed, growing, and caring organization in every single community where they operate. They put a heavy emphasis on being the premier quality food retailer all the time. This means that Publix must do an exceptional job of focusing on their customers, on their employees, on efficiency, on stockholders, as well as on the communities where they operate on a regular basis. To give you one example of responsible citizens in our communities, I remember in Orlando area where one winter it was very cold and electricity went out. All of our stores and parts of Central Florida were not working because we did not have electricity and our generators were not working. So when the generators were not working, customers were in the store buying groceries. Unfortunately, we could not calculate all the groceries by calculators and having them pay in cash. So some of the managers simply told our customers, go ahead and please enjoy the groceries that you have on your shopping carts and enjoy. Since you're one of our customers, we do not want to make you wait. Now, many of those customers came back and paid for their groceries out of the goodwill of their own heart because they want to be good neighbors to Publix as well. So those are the types of exceptional experiences that Publix employees and managers have gone through to make sure their customers are served well all the time. That's one of the reasons when you walk into a store, you look for a product you cannot find and you ask an employee, usually he or she walks you to the product or to the aisle as opposed to stating that it's on aisle 15, you can find it yourself. So they walk you to it simply because they want to make sure you find what you're looking for. So at Publix, community involvement and volunteering are important criteria for employees to make sure they're engaged, which obviously increases their satisfaction as employees as well as their commitment. Ultimately, all of this leads to a higher level of success for the employee as well as for the store and overall organization where shopping becomes a pleasure. Of course, in order to make working a pleasure, you need to strategize this with all the managers on a regular basis. And at Publix, I can agree that they are working harder than ever before to make shopping a pleasure. However, with that pleasure, obviously, comes good work environment. As Mr. George Jenkins used to say, never let making a profit stand in the way of doing the right thing. So ethics has always been an important criteria for employees and managers throughout the Publix culture. And Mr. Jenkins also mentioned that you don't learn much by sitting behind a desk and simply telling others what to do. In other words, he said, get involved, be engaged with your colleagues, with your employees, with your organization, and with your community. Eventually, that type of engagement will make the work environment a pleasure for all. Publix provided development. Publix leaders continue to emphasize that we need to prepare for the opportunity. We need to prepare our departments, our teams, our future prospects for opportunities in our cities, in our state, in the country. Publix managers were encouraged to mentor, to coach, to invest in their employees for future development. So at Publix, where shopping is a pleasure, employees do tend to find that working is also a pleasure. Partially, this is because training and development at Publix has become a continuous process in which employees in the organization win every single day. They want to win. They want to make every customer's, every employee's experience a good one, a memorable one. Why do they do this? Because they cannot sit back on their laurels and say, hey, we're doing good. We are one of the top best 100 companies in America. Therefore, we will continue to be successful. No, that is not the case. Not want to be complacent. Why? Because competitors are improving every single day. Remember, Walmart is one of their main competitors in the state of Florida, where they say we save people money so they can live better. Well, Publix wants to continue making every experience a pleasure for their customers in order to be able to compete with the world's best companies, such as Walmart, as well as companies like Target, where Target managers emphasize the strength of many, the power of one phrase as part of their commitment to diversity. So Publix has to offer an environment where shopping is a pleasure as well as working is a pleasure for all their employees. In other words, they have to provide an inclusive culture for customers and for employees in order to be able to compete with these giant retailers in our culture. Publix managers and employees were encouraged to think creatively and be engaged through teamwork that eventually an organization can compete in the industry. Creating a strong and dedicated workforce is the only way to succeed in today's world. I've been lucky enough to have worked with many strong and creative teams in Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Naples, and throughout the Central Florida region, as well as at the headquarters in Lakeland. Foundation of all this was continuous development. I started Publix at high school, and I graduated with a doctoral degree while working full-time throughout my career at Publix. As a manager, I worked oftentimes 60 to 70 hours a week, especially during holiday periods. Nonetheless, the encouragement, the support, the flexibility from my bosses were always there for me to continue my education and continue developing myself, to help my department, to help the organization be creative and do a little bit better than the day before. The spirit of continuous improvement has always been present at Publix. I remember that we used to survey over 100,000 people in the 1990s every single year to the Associated Voice survey. So those employees and managers throughout the company were given almost up to an hour to complete the survey on company time in order to get their opinion about how they felt about the organization, how happy they were, how stressed they were, what they thought about their managers, and what they could do to make the organization a little bit better because of their presence in the company. So as a manager, regardless of what organization you work for, make sure to conduct an organizational audit related to diversity, to pay equity, to inclusion, to stress management, time management, and employee satisfaction every chance that you get. And you should set developmental goals for the coming year along with your employees and managers to make the workplace a little bit better than you found it. Mr. Jenkins used to say that Publix will be a little better place to work or not quite as good because of you. That is a very important statement. Every time I read that on the walls of Publix stores or on the manuals that we received as employees and as managers, it made me feel good that I am wanted here. I am supported here. I am heard here at this organization. That's a culture that is difficult to create, but you can only create that by actually training managers to be open-minded, to listen to their employees actively and or empathically, to encourage employees, to coach employees to be involved in the communities where they live and work. It's sort of like the fish philosophy where Publix managers were encouraged to make work like play, to be there for your employees, for your customers, to choose your attitude every single day because you have control over how you respond to various situations when they don't go according to the plan. And also to make their day, in other words, make the customer's experience a pleasure and make your employees' working day a pleasure as well. Of course, even when you try your hardest to make the work environment a pleasure and the shopping experience a pleasure for all customers, things don't always go well. But we need to be prepared to respond intelligently, even to unintelligent treatment by others. That's an important statement to remember, regardless of where we work. As Sheryl Sandberg has mentioned, we cannot change what we are not aware of. And once we are aware, we cannot help but change. So awareness, empowerment, training, development, and continuous improvement are keys to bringing about positive changes in the workplace on a regular basis. Continuous improvement requires coaching people. As my colleague and mentor, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith used to say, what got you here will not necessarily get you there. So the skills that made an organization successful in the past are not necessarily the skills needed today to get you to the next step. That's why continuous coaching and development are important for all employees. As Edward Deming a long time ago mentioned, about 80% of workplace performance problems are caused by improper system design and goal allocations, while people cause around 20%. So sometimes as managers, our biggest responsibility is to create a good work environment and let people do their jobs by staying out of their way and by supporting them, by helping them achieve their goals. Managers must first remove systemic barriers in order for employees to become outstanding performers through training and empowerment. It should be noted that changes do not always translate into productivity and profits. We know that self-checkout has been a failed experiment, causing much stress for customers and losses for some businesses. Many retailers have been on the news regarding their customers being unhappy and regarding theft being on the rise in the retail environment, partially due to self-checkout that unfortunately has not served the organization or customers well. Stanley mentions that although age plays a significant role in determining our preferences for self-checkout, there are deeper underlying factors at play in this process. Expectations, confidence in technology, and the frustration of encountering unfamiliar systems all contribute to the decision-making process of whether to continue shopping at a location or not. And he says that there are many psychological effects that are associated with eliminating human interaction in retail and the potential consequences for both customers and retail employees. By allowing customers to scan and pay for their items themselves, self-checkout can eliminate the need for waiting in long lines. And it also provides a faster checkout process for some customers. It puts the power in the hands of customers and enables them to complete most transactions at their own pace. This independence is a benefit, especially for the time-impoverished customers who prefer a more self-reliant approach to their shopping. However, psychological deterrents of self-checkout are present. Self-checkout has gained popularity and become a convenient option for many customers. According to Stanley, there are many psychological deterrents that make customers hesitate to use technology. And he mentions fear of embarrassment, humiliation, accusations, the impact of technical difficulties, barcode scanning issues, frustration with technology, lingering negative experiences, and impact on future engagement. These are all issues that retailers must assess and explore before they transition into self-checkout. Lucky for us, in Florida at least, Publix has only transitioned some of their lines to self-checkout in some locations, but they always have cashiers that can help you if you do not want to use the self-checkout process. So self-checkout systems heavily rely on technology, and while they aim to streamline the checkout process, not every customer feels comfortable using it. And sadly, many retailers have converted all their lanes to self-checkout, which is not comfortable for many of us, even when we do know how to check out our groceries. We don't want to do it. So some customers feel overwhelmed or intimidated by technology that's involved in self-checkout process, which leads to a sense of frustration in negative shopping experience with that retailer. So retailers must assess the long-term impact of a customer's bad self-checkout experiences and determine the true cost of these hiccups. Stanley says ultimately creating a positive and seamless self-checkout experience will benefit retailers in terms of their cost savings, as well as enhance customer satisfaction and loyalty, so long as it is done properly. In summary, if you want to be a successful employee at Publix or any other organization in this modern environment, aim to be a lifelong learner. Plant the seeds of development for yourself as well as for your employees so they can grow and so they can be ready to deal with complex challenges tomorrow. A good example in the environment is the bamboo tree. When a Chinese bamboo tree is planted and watered effectively, its growth is all underground during the first 4 years, growing only a few inches. But in its 5th year, it can grow to an amazing height of 90 feet in just 4 to 6 weeks. If training, development, and education is the bamboo tree growing inside of you, keep nourishing it with a strong faith that progressive development is occurring even if you cannot see it. As organizational leaders, plant the seeds of development, growth, and education in all of your employees on a regular basis. Make sure your employees replenish themselves with proper fuel, proper nourishment on a cognitive basis so they can not only develop individually, but their development will help your organization grow and develop as well.